Rome spent 700 years trying to destroy this city. What they found will shock you. In 146 BC, the most powerful empire on Earth made a decision. Not to defeat their greatest enemy, but to erase them completely. They burned the city for 17 days straight. Then they tore down every wall, every temple, every home stone by stone. Then, according to legend, they salted the earth so nothing would ever grow there again. That city was Carthage. And Rome was so afraid of it that they didn't just want to win. They wanted it gone from memory forever. This is the story of what Rome tried to erase. And why -1,000 years later, we are still talking about it. Before Rome was the superpower of the ancient world, Carthage was. Founded around 814 BC on the northern coast of Africa, and what is today the country of Tunisia, Carthage grew into the wealthiest trading empire the Mediterranean had ever seen. We are not talking about a small desert settlement. We are talking about a civilization that controlled over 300 cities across North Africa, Spain, and the islands of the Mediterranean Sea. Their navy was untouchable, -350 warships capable of destroying anything that dared challenge them on open water. Their merchants traded in gold, silver, ivory, and silk across 3 continents simultaneously. Their engineers built a harbor so sophisticated, with 2 completely separate ports. One for commercial trade and one exclusively for their military fleet that modern archaeologists are still studying. And how it functioned with such precision. The city itself was home to over 1 million people. Streets were lined with multi-story buildings. Markets overflowed with goods from every corner of the known world. Children grew up learning mathematics, astronomy, and the art of navigation. Carthage was not behind the times. Carthage was ahead of them. And their generals were the stuff of legend. One of them, a man named Hannibal Barca, made a military decision so bold, so completely insane, that it is still studied in military academies around the world 2,000 years later. He marched 37 war elephants -37 living, breathing war elephants across the Alps mountain range in the middle of winter to attack Rome from the north. Think about that for a moment. The Alps. In winter. With elephants. His army suffered brutal losses from the cold, from the terrain, from avalanches. But Hannibal kept moving. And when he finally descended into northern Italy, he tore through Roman army after Roman army like they were made of paper. At the Battle of Cannae in 16 BC, Hannibal's forces killed an estimated 70,000 Roman soldiers in a single afternoon, one of the worst military defeats in Roman history. Rome was so terrified of Hannibal that mothers used his name to frighten their children at night. For 15 years, he marched through Italy and Rome could not stop him. He was the nightmare Rome could not wake up from. But Rome had something Carthage could not match. Not better generals. Not a stronger navy. Not more gold. Rome had something far more dangerous: patience and obsession. There was a man in the Roman Senate named Cato the Elder. And this man was consumed, completely and utterly consumed, by one thought: the destruction of Carthage. It didn't matter what the Senate was discussing. Trade agreements, road construction, water supply issues. It didn't matter. Cato would stand up, make his argument on whatever the topic was, and then end every single speech with the exact same 6 Latin words. Carthago delenda state. Carthage must be destroyed. Every speech. 4 years. Over and over and over again. Until Rome finally listened. By 149 BC, Rome had manufactured enough political justification to launch what would become their final campaign against Carthage. And here is the part that will make your blood boil. Carthage had been following every single peace treaty Rome demanded. Every one. They were not at war. They were not threatening anyone. But Rome wanted them gone. So they sent a delegation to Carthage with a list of demands. First, they demanded 300 children from Carthage's most noble families as hostages, as a so-called guarantee of peace. The Carthaginians, desperate to avoid war, agreed. They handed over 300 of their own children. Rome took the children, and then kept marching their armies toward Carthage anyway. Then Rome sent one final demand. The people of Carthage must abandon their city, move at least 15 miles inland, and allow Carthage itself to be demolished. Leave your home. Leave your harbor. Leave the city your ancestors built. Just walk away. And that was the moment the Carthaginian people made their decision. They would not walk away. They would fight. What happened next is one of the most extraordinary acts of collective defiance in all of human history. The city of Carthage, not an army, not soldiers, the people, ordinary people, transformed themselves into a war machine overnight. Women melted down their gold jewelry and bronze mirrors to forge new weapons. They cut off their own hair, and braided it into rope for catapults and siege weapons. Temples became weapon factories. Streets became training grounds. An entire civilian population looked at the most powerful military force on earth marching toward them and said, "Not today." The siege lasted 3 years. 3 years of watching the walls crack under Roman battering rams. 3 years of starvation so severe that people were eating leather and grass to survive. 3 years of burying their neighbors, their friends, their children, in the rubble of a city slowly dying around them. But they held on. For 3 years, this city of civilians held off the Roman military machine through sheer, unbreakable will. When the Romans finally breached the walls in 146 BC, they didn't walk into a surrendered city. They walked into a fight. The surviving Carthaginians battled them street by street, house by house, room by room. The Romans had to fight for every single inch of that city for 6 more days of brutal, close-quarters combat. The last survivors retreated to the very top of the great temple of Eshmun, the highest point remaining in the burning city. And when they finally realized there was no escape, no rescue coming, no miracle on the way, the wife of the Carthaginian general walked to the edge of the temple roof. She looked down at her husband who had already surrendered to the Romans below. She cursed him for surrendering. She cursed Rome. She cursed every soldier standing in the ashes of her city. And then she gathered her children in her arms and threw herself into the flames below. The city burned for 17 more days. When the fires finally went cold, Roman workers moved in and tore down whatever remained, stone by stone, wall by wall. And then came the salt. Poured into the earth so that nothing, not a single blade of grass, would ever grow where Carthage once stood. A civilization 700 years old. Erased in 3 weeks. But here is what Rome could never destroy. The Phoenician language that Carthage spoke still echoes in the dialects of North Africa to this day. Their trade routes became the commercial highways of the entire ancient world. Every empire that came after used the paths Carthage built. And Hannibal, the general Rome feared more than any other human being who ever lived. His tactics, his strategies, his genius on the battlefield are still taught, still studied, still respected in the halls of every military academy on earth. Julius Caesar studied him. Napoleon studied him. Modern generals study him today. Rome thought they were erasing a rival. What they actually did was create an immortal legend. Today, archaeologists digging beneath the modern city of Tunis in Tunisia are still uncovering Carthage piece by piece, layer by layer. Jewelry, coins, architecture, evidence of a culture, a people, a civilization far more sophisticated and far more beautiful than Rome ever wanted the world to know existed. In 2023 alone, new excavations revealed entire neighborhoods that had never been found before, streets still intact, walls still standing, 2,000 years after Rome declared them erased. Rome spent 700 years fighting Carthage. They started 3 massive wars. They lost battles so catastrophic they nearly destroyed Rome itself. They threw everything they had at this one city on the coast of North Africa. And when they finally won, they didn't just take the victory. They burned the city, salted the earth, killed the name. And still here we are, 2,000 years later, and we are still telling Carthage's story. Not Rome's obsession. Not Cato's speeches. Carthage. The city they tried to unmake. Maybe the most powerful thing a civilization can do is refuse to be forgotten. Maybe the buildings don't need to stand. Maybe the books don't need to survive. Maybe all it takes is one story, told to one person, who tells it to another and another, and another until the erasure fails completely. Carthage was not destroyed. Carthage was just waiting for someone to tell the truth. And now you know it. Share this story tonight, because some things deserve to be remembered.